you very much, Florian. I'm very happy to be here and be the moderator of this session. And so welcome and thank you for joining us. Today, our panelists and I will be discussing how digitalization will help drive circularity and make it a successful new business model. And the new business model is very important to keep in mind because when you embrace circularity principle, not only you're going to contribute, businesses will contribute to a more sustainable world, but you will also unlock agility and resilience in your operation and, for example, in your value chain. So remember, it's not whether we need to act or not, it's how fast we're going to act to do this really deep transformation from a linear model to a circular economy model. And digitalization is going to be a key enabler to make it happen. So I'm really glad today to have three great panelists with us to discuss how digitalization will actually help that. So joining me on stage, we have three panelists from different stakeholders in the value chain, because it's also very important that when you embrace circularity, you think about collaborations. So I will let each of them introduce themselves. So maybe Umberto Cuscchi, can you start introducing yourself and give a little bit of an overview of Circularise?
Yeah, thanks a lot, Delphine. Pleasure to be here. My name is Umberto, working as a business developer for Circularise. Circularise is a software company based in the Netherlands, working on digital product passport. So pretty much providing the IT architecture, the IT infrastructure, facilitating the collection of data points from one end to the other of the value chain. As I said, with the purpose of creating and building digital product passports.
Okay, Nina Fechler, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, sure. My name is Nina. I'm working for Evonik. Evonik is a specialty chemicals company, meaning we are producing products which are probably around many products you see around you, but always in a very small amount because they give their products their properties. So let's take, for example, car tires. We are not producing car tires, but we produce a product that make them more efficient, so you save energy. And I'm working for Evonik Circular Economy program, where we do business development to really transform our company and our value chains to more circularity.
Okay, thank you so much, Nina. Dheeraj, you want to go ahead?
Sure. Hi, I'm Dheeraj Bareja. I'm working for universalautomation.org. This organization is a non-for-profit organization based out of Belgium. We started in 2021 with 9 founding members, and by today we have 84 founding members. The association is combination of basically 2 things. One is the IEC 61499 standard, and then it's an ecosystem of different end users, which are the owners of the factory and site. Plus, we have in the ecosystem universities, device manufacturers, system integrators, process OEMs. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much for this great introduction. So now let's just go and take a deep dive on the circularity. But before we get there, I'd like to maybe ask this question to Nina. And we're thinking about the elephant in the room in terms of circularity, which is plastic circularity. So why, in your opinion, Nina, where is there a growing interest nowadays around the topic of circularity, and in particular about plastic circularity?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So I would say plastics per se is not the issue as a material, but we have on the one hand the challenge, how is it made? So usually from fossil-based raw materials, and then of course plastic material should not end up in the environment. And I think it's the perfect material to go circular because we have all the technologies to keep it in the circle, and it would also contribute to solving these issues. So the more we can use it longer, the more we can recycle it, keep it really in the loop. I think that would solve a lot of issues that we currently see when we think of plastics, and hopefully will also contribute there to innovation.
Yeah. And I think that's a very good answer. And also maybe what I'd like to add is that in terms of plastic, we know plastic production is going to increase as well in the future. So it's predicted that by 2050, we'll be producing 1 gigaton of plastics every year compared to about 500 million today. And only 10% is recycled. So of course, circularity is super important if we want to avoid all the landfilling and the plastic ending up in the environment. Okay, and maybe what are Nina also, what are the current challenges that you see in terms of plastic circularity?
Yeah, I mean, you were already mentioning the amounts that we will need in the future. And the problem here is a bit right now that partners, or let's say companies that before never worked together, have to come together to close these loops and get these amounts really into the cycle. So one challenge I would say is definitely how to design the logistics, let's say. How do we make it happen, that we can collect it, that we have all the technologies to keep it also in the quality that we would need. There it's also connected to a lot of learning, let's say, what each company can contribute, how to position in the future. Sometimes it's questions on backward, forward integration. So it's really a question not just technologically, but also what does it mean from a strategic point of view for each of the companies. And that is a process that takes time, which then is connected to the challenge, how do you keep people on board? So we know it's not going to happen from one night to the other. So how do you really keep, let's say, the long-term target there while making small steps each day?
Yep. So a lot of collaboration and keeping that in the loop. So maybe then the next question to all our panelists would be, how can digitalization support plastic manufacturers with regard to circularity? Really, how can digitalization help there and boost the plastic recycling? And maybe can you also share some tangible examples in the industry? So Umberto, do you want to start with this question?
Yeah, sure. As Nina was kind of hinting already, there's a bit that element of lack in transparency and collaboration across different players in this value chain. This is maybe mainly due to the fact that there is no a real super concrete incentive in data sharing. Also linked to the fact that also you have several regulation coming though, both at the national and international level, a bit stimulating companies to share more and be open with each other. I feel that a key element here in this topic is to how can we facilitate this company from upstream all the way downstream to the consumer and to the recyclers in being more transparent, in sharing more data, is to provide a solution or architecture, an infrastructure, making sure that the data sharing happens in a secure way, in a transparent way, but also keeping in mind how do we take care of those sensitive data, those sensitive information that me, key player in the middle of a chain, I do not want to share fully with my competitors or with my suppliers or my customers. Here, blockchain really plays also a key role because you bring to the table that element of decentralized verifiability, or bring to the table the concept of creating digital auditable trail of materials that go from one part to the other. But you also bring to the table the possibility of different disclosure level and different access groups. So I can decide, for example, that a certain data point will only be available to recyclers, a certain data point can only be available to my customers, and deciding how much I can share and to whom across my value chain. So I feel this is a key concept, and we already kind of mentioned it before entering the panel, the concept of interoperability. So in this game, it will be impossible to tie up a company, a value chain, or the entire world to a single digital solution provider in this space. So a key element will be interoperability. So me working with a certain digital solution provider, I must be able to exchange data points on the environmental side or the social and governance side with my customers working with another provider. So very similar to emails. If I'm sending an email from Outlook to Gmail, I know that those data points will be sent and received. The same concept needs to apply at the digital level for data sharing in this space particularly.
Yep. So we see really much the importance of the data sharing, collaboration, breaking silos. I wonder, Dheeraj, can you also shed some light in your view how can digitalization help there in circularity?
Yeah, sure. I think when we talk about manufacturing sites and plants, so we see there are different stakeholders at sites. You have system integrator, machine builders, OEMs supplying different machines and different devices on site. So first we start with breaking up the silos among those devices by porting the common runtime, which is universal automation runtime developed by the organization. Once you port this runtime onto these devices, they start to talk in the same kind of language, which can be programmed with a single software. Okay, so one of the software available is EcoStruxure Automation Expert. So that means we come out of this vendor locked-in scenario in this case. And once they start to speak to each other, the communication between all these devices is seamless. That means we need not to write any explicit commands. And this is the magic of the runtime which is provided by the organization. Okay, and and this is all about digitalization because everything is getting digitized. The communication between the devices is seamless. And once the communication is done among the devices, the data goes to the operator on the operator screen which on the visualization layer. And if you see in this, the data which is shown on the screen of the operator is very much process designed. It's a replica of the process flow diagram which the operator sees in their PFDs, right? So this is again kind of digitization which we are having. And not only this, we also spoke to some of the key end users. They clearly said the software is the software application software is the new digital tool. The hardware is just a commodity. Okay, so that means once the data has reached the visualization layer, you can really optimize it using the advanced analytical tools, using some AI ML algorithms running on it. And this is where you start to improvise or you start to make it more efficient and improve the overall efficiency.
Yeah. And I see that across also some the value chain, breaking the silos. When you have a unified kind of operation, you can start really optimizing. And we know with plastics, there's a lot of variability in the feedstock. So there's a lot to do in the optimization as well. Nina, a word from you also on this side? You want to comment?
Yeah, I would say it also helps you really tracking down where might be your biggest CO2 issues, for example, and you can pin it down much more. And make it more concrete. And with this, you can either go to your suppliers and make it more concrete to say, this is something I need to work on, but also something for your customers to say, look, in this case, we can work together. And it will help you not just for, let's say, company images, but also in terms of product placing. It's a competitive advantage at a certain point if you are able to really track it down.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. But I'd like to add one of, I think, a complexity in the plastic circularity world, and I'd like Nina to comment on this, is there's a lot of discussion about the mass balance approach, and attribution, which is basically you're going to mix fossil derived fuels with some recycled content. How are you going to manage that? So can you share some light on this and explain us the concept and how digitalization can also help there?
Sure. So as you said, mass balance, it's a method to basically track material flows. And I would like to make the point, it's not specific to circularity or chemical recycling. It's just a physical chemical rule, basically, that mass cannot disappear. Yeah? So something you give into a system also comes out. And that allows us in processes like chemical recycling to track basically on a mathematical base where certain streams are going. So if we blend, for example, bio-based with fossil, recycled with fossil, we can actually attribute then the amount to the final product. So this is basically helping us to get the whole system running. It's of course different than if you can say where exactly a molecule went. And I would say currently there's a lot of discussion on how we can actually use it, what are the benefits, where also we need to take a bit care. But I would say mass balance per se can be an enabler to at least get the transition, circularity transition started.
Very good, that's very clear. So we really see that traceability is key. So Umberto, how can traceability of recycled material be ensured in the whole value chain? I think you touched on it a little bit earlier on blockchain, but maybe you can elaborate a bit more.
Sure. Yeah, the key element of blockchain, and maybe a little word, we per se are not a blockchain company, meaning that we see blockchain today as the best technology to bring to the table the element of verifiability, transparency, and traceability. So if tomorrow, next week, a year, 10 years from now, there's a new, better technology to actually do this job better, we'll move to that technology. But as today, we really feel like that blockchain really brings to the table this concept in a very concrete and secure way. So every transaction that takes place in the real world takes place as well at the software level for Circularise, also happens in the background at the blockchain level. So then it's very easy also to understand if there is some mistakes or some fraud or some manipulation, which block has been contaminated, which blocks contain. Gives, let's say, more confidence and strength to businesses to make certain claims, and also avoid to fall trap of the element of greenwashing, which comes at a very high risk and high cost for companies. So, in essence, brings and connects very well transparency, traceability, and accountability for the plastic recycle business. But anyhow, for all the sectors that are really linked to the concept of digital water passport. So it works very well around plastic, but textile, electronics. So brings to the table this element in a very concrete and secure way.
Yep, thank you. And I'd like to jump on what you said about digital product passport, because we hear a lot of things around that. We hear that 2027, especially on the batteries, every batteries will have to have a digital product passport. So what is it exactly? Nina, can you explain us what does it means really?
Yes, as we were already discussing, it's basically a digital way how to trace information from a product, everything where the raw materials come from, how the processing went, how to treat it by the end of life. So that we have an option to share enough information to really proceed along the value chain, but just enough that it is really only for this and not everything else, as we discussed before. But basically, it's a tracking system for various product value chains.
Umberto, you want to add? Or?
Yeah, maybe, of course, as you were saying, batteries really represent the most hot, say, sector for digital product passport with the pressing date of 2027, but already with the date of 2025 with third-party verification around the carbon footprint. And here, let's say that the suggestion being really connected and working closely with the battery sector is that you really see the sector scrambling and moving fast and being now very scared of this magnitude of data points that will be required. So 90 plus data points to be collected and actually working as 90 different pages into that passport. So here that the suggestion really to start to look at the issue quite soon, also from a plastic perspective, because the regulation is coming. It's not a matter of if, but when. So.
Okay, agreed. And maybe one last question about the standardization and legislation, because we're talking about the digital passport, so that's going to be a requirement. And how do you think, Umberto, this legislation and standardization can help boost as well the circularity and implementation of circular concepts?
Yes, here is really the big work must be, let's say, done by the regulators who are drafting the requirements that will be necessary and will work as the skeleton, as the architecture in the data collection efforts. We can take maybe some learning examples from the battery case where regulators were not so specific into define certain, let's say, characteristic of the data point. So an example that comes to mind as of now is updating, let's say, an information on the battery status or health.
Yeah.
But for example, the regulators do not define the frequency. So it must be done every month, every year, or when, for example, a certain number has been reached, a certain number of cycles. So a better job also is necessary at the regulator level in defining these parameters since day one and taking, let's say, a learning example from this case around batteries that's been the forerunner around digital product passports. Take these learning examples, especially on the regulator side. So since day one, on the plastic side, when there will be a much more defined regulations on the digital product passport for plastic, the whole sector can move at full speed from day one in gathering these data points from one side to the other of the value chain.
Yeah, and I see a lot of synergies and how we can also learn from one sector to another. So really a lot of lessons learned between the different industries and making sure that we can collaborate together as well as an important key success factor in here. Dheeraj, I'd like to ask you maybe, do you have a use case that you can share with us in terms of open automation and how that can also fit into the circularity?
Yeah, definitely. So I think first I will explain why open automation is needed. I mean, so
a bit closer. The mic.
Sorry. Yeah. So open automation is like we have seen that there are business and technical challenges witnessed by the manufacturers of the plant, the end users. Okay, and then this is why it took place. With open automation, we have seen with some key end users, we made a study wherein we found that the total cost of ownership of the overall TCO goes drastically down if we follow principles for open automation. Okay, in open automation, we have seen modular, flexible architecture which are scalable, which can be easily scalable at any level. Then these architectures have devices which are on which we can run software from, for example, EcoStruxure Automation Expert, one of the software with which we can program these devices which are vendor agnostic, which we can plug the different software components coming from different software service providers, and once we plug them, we connect them through adapters. These they can produce the relevant control application, and this control application can be easily deployed using one of the software, which is EcoStruxure Automation Expert by Schneider Electric. Using this software, we can deploy to either one of the CPUs or the IOs or one of the devices, or we can even distribute this program, this application to these devices. And one of the major project or demonstrator which has been developed is by GR3 and company in recycling plastic, so that we can produce virgin like plastics in an infinite manner. So using open automation is inevitable. It's just it's happening in front of us, and there is a big organization behind this, and UAO is also a big accelerator towards this open automation.
Yeah, very clear. Thank you. And maybe before we open the session to the Q&A part, maybe a final thought from each of you. Umberto, you want to start with a final thought?
Yeah, maybe summarizing all the words said until now, that is really key to start to look at issue already from today and start to think in a way that how can I gather these data points? How can I make sure that my data points are collected into a passport in an easy, fast, secure way? So let's say my suggestion here is to really look at the concept of digital product passport, because it really brings a lot of value, not only, let's say, for the product itself that is being traced and can, let's say, bring a certain of trust and security in the data collection, but also makes businesses more secure in making claims, again, without falling trap of the concept, as we said, of greenwashing.
Okay. Nina?
Yeah, I would also say get involved easily and early on, basically, into the discussions, even if you don't know exactly what is a digital passport or how does it work. Really get into the consortia that are existing, looking at batteries, for example, how they're doing it, because right now everything is still open and you can design a lot. So I would say right now is a good time to start.
Yeah, get involved. Dheeraj?
If you really want to learn more about open automation and universal automation, we are co-exhibiting with Schneider Electric at hall number 11.1 C85. So I'm there for next 3 days. You can approach us and we can demo you the concepts of our universal automation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, really, for joining and for your great insight. And I will hand it over to Florian now for a question from the floor.
So thank you, Delphine, for giving over to me. So let's have an applause for the 3 speakers and the moderator, please. And we got time for, let's say, 1 or 2 fast questions. Anyone having a question concerning digitalization in this, let's say, very chemical aspect? Maybe I got one question. I didn't get it properly. The digital product passport, is that something which is mandatory already in the EU, or which will become mandatory, or not mandatory at all?
It will be mandatory from 2027 for batteries. Here the date has already been, let's say, set and approved. And for other interest groups such as electronic, textile, and plastics including, the estimate is around 2029, I would say. So again, here it's a matter of finding the exact date, but not if it will take place. So that has been already decided.
Maybe I could take the chance to have the last fast question, if no one else from the audience wants to ask a question. Yesterday we had the opening, the ACHEMA opening, and I can't remember who said that, but it was said that the United States, they do they're innovative, the Asians produce, and the Europeans regulate. So do you think the digital product passport is something like an over-regulation, or it's a necessary tool to come for some kind of circular economy?
I would not say that the product passport is a regulation per se. It's something that the industry should shape. That's why I said people should start right now. And it's a necessary tool we need to have to really get it going. Hopefully not to have too many regulatory aspects on it. But maybe just last comment on this. If you want to see what is upcoming, look at the Eco-Design Directive. Their products will be prioritized. And that is probably a good moment to get started and see where you can step in and design it.
Okay, so something in between. Thank you. So let's thank the speakers again for this nice discussion.